He's Tass. It's the Metzger Tassoul Show.
Hello, sir. You wanted to say something?
Is that a birthday shirt or what?
Yeah, you like it?
Disco Danny's in the house. What's going on, baby?
Going out to dinner tonight?
I got dressed early or what?
Did. I only dress once a day, man. I do jujitsu in this outfit and everything.
Good for you.
Thank you.
For you.
Thank you, Tess. Oh,
How goes it?
good, man. So, is it chilly there in Wisconsin or something? Or
Yeah, it's starting to turn into fall, man.
but I see that I thought I saw where you guys are a few degrees above normal right now from yesterday.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a beautiful weekend, so yeah, it's good. It's good. Got a little golf outing tomorrow. Packer game on Sunday, so yeah, it'll be fun.
That's a good weekend.
It is a good weekend. So how are you?
Swimming with sea turtles, octopus, and fried islands.
Yeah, those are good weekends too. Just those are far and few between.
They're not bad. I can't wait to see how much money I lose this weekend.
Well, how much money are you going to save on those future cruises? That's what you got to look at it. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the only way I look at it. All right. So, hello, everybody. Miss Ramos and Miss Angelieri. Hello. Hello, everyone. Today we are. Okay. You okay? Bless you. You all right?
Little fall allergies going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. So
this will be an interesting conversation today.
What's the conversation about today, Tass?
Something about tradition, and are we getting away from tradition?
Right. And 280s are interested in knowing.
That's perfect. We'll just have a little private session here.
Either Perry's taking selfies or he's sharing to different groups. Perry?
Sure.
Sharing. Okay. So anyway, we are in the final few days of not just September, but the final few days of the third quarter. And this is it, man. Can you believe it already that we're going into the fourth quarter of 2023? It's unbelievable.
No, I can't. And to think, I mean, like COVID's like a distant thing, right? It's like here and gone, and I mean, here we are 2 years later. It's crazy.
COVID's about 7 feet from me, actually.
Well, yeah, it's still going around. Yeah, I think I just read. I'll get political for a second. I think there's like $6 billion, if I remember right, that's going around in funding so everyone can get like 4 or 6, whatever it is, at-home tests or something like that. I don't know.
Tass, we're not going to steer the show into that direction.
I mean, either you know or you don't know. Does anyone really want to know if they have COVID, by the way, anymore?
Okay, Tass, where are you taking us? Dangerous territory.
I mean, isn't it just at this point? Isn't it just a cold? I mean, can we just we have?
Oh my gosh, he's still going. We're losing viewership.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. No, I'm just teasing. I think I have.
Where's your MAGA hat?
not till January.
All right. Yeah, sounds like Tass has COVID and not allergies.
Yeah, it might be. If that's the case, I've had it for months. So if you've been around me, everybody, stay away.
Mandy doesn't want to know.
Yeah, right.
All right. So anyway, look, yeah, we're finishing up the third quarter for anybody in business in general, but specifically the martial arts business. What are you doing to finish the quarter strong, the month strong? You know what I see though, before we talk about tradition, what I see is a lot of people, if they were having a bad month or a bad quarter, being that there's only, what is there, 1 full week left tomorrow and then next week, or what?
Yeah, yes, correct.
Whatever it is, 1 full week left after this week. The thing is what people will do is they will, not all people, but a lot of people will shut off.
Yeah, I'll tap out. Yep.
Yep, they'll tap out, they'll shut off, and they'll say, "Look, we're going to crush it next quarter." And I'll never understand that, right? There's no reason why you can't save your month or your quarter, right?
I want to just put that in perspective. You know, it's interesting because two things, only two Mets, not six, just two. The first one is if I go back to December, right? I look at December and we had a six-figure month in December and we did that in 16 days. And that always comes back to my mind because, well, how did we do that, right? We like to ask ourselves a question. Well, if you have a bad month, well, why? If you have a great month, well, why? And it's really about, being successful in booking appointments, right? We won't go into all that, but it's about booking appointments and it's about taking action. So worst case scenario, here's part two, is if you do go into this last week of September and we go into the last week with a vengeance and maybe nothing happens as a result of that in September, it's an unbelievable way to kick off the fourth quarter. So that's the other side of it. So it's a no-lose situation. So just go after it.
Exactly correct, my friend. And I was talking to a gentleman yesterday, and
it's just Shane. Just Shane is fine.
Oh, I was talking to Shane yesterday. No, I was talking to a gentleman yesterday that got my information from Master Ricardo Laborio, who is a very good friend. And he's looking to open a school, and he said, this is my point to the quarter, right? So I hope everyone stays tuned in here for a second. Which they're not, by the way, as I see the numbers dropping. But anyway, he said,
you want to talk about COVID to get more people back engaged?
Yeah, can you bring the COVID thing up real quick? Let's take a commercial break. So no, he was talking about how he will work and he will go in and he has such drive and he'll work hard and but there's certain things that he doesn't want to do, right? And I said, well, sir, that's like sending a fighter into the octagon that said, I will swing and I will come in with a fury. But statistically and probability, you're probably not going to do well doing that. You got to know what to do. You got to know how to finish the month strong. And I think that's where we come in. But we're not going to get into a seminar mode. But my point is everybody likes to say work smarter, not harder. But a lot of people like to tout how they work harder. But if you're working harder and you're not working smarter, you can go nowhere fast, right? So let's talk about this. Is our industry losing tradition? Is the martial arts industry? And let me just ask you guys, whoever's watching, what do you feel? Do you think if you look at the martial arts industry, however long you've been in it, right? Do you think the martial arts industry as a whole is losing its traditions? Whatever that means to you.
Go ahead, right. Dad. And I was going to say, and I would, a follow-up question is, what is tradition, right? Like, what does that mean to you? Because I think there's some subjectivity there to figure out, well, what does that mean? I know, you came up in Taekwondo style. I did as well. I came up through, underneath a Korean master, and it was great. Got a great time training. And then, we did everything was in Korean, right? The counts, the techniques, everything was in Korean. And I think there's some good, right? And I don't blame any schools that are still doing that. I think it can be great. We made the decision. And by the way, first 10 years that I owned my own school, we did the same thing. And that is a tradition of where I was at, right? And what was some of the nomenclature and things that we did. But it's not what made a great martial artist, in my opinion, is having to know a different language, right? That's knowing a different language. That has nothing to do necessarily with the martial art. So I think understanding what discipline or what tradition really is to you. And I think, by the way, I'm curious to see everybody else's comments, but I think changing and evolving is important in anything that we do, right? And if we stay stuck with what we've been doing and that's all we ever do and we don't grow and we don't evolve, well, then we haven't left the martial art better than it was than when we found it, right? So, but tradition can be a lot of different things. And for us, one of the traditions, if you will, that we keep, and maybe it's more of a culture than a tradition, is, the discipline and the life skills of what we do in our martial arts school. So, do we still do the bow? Yeah, we still do the bowing, right? We still do the respect thing and surnames and all of those things. But there's certain things that we've also let go of. So, as people are furiously typing on their keyboards about tradition,
Right. I see all the comments.
sure they're not. What's your take? I mean, what was your experience, Metz, when you were growing up through the arts? I know because you were this kid that moved all over the place, but in the places that you were at, what were some of the traditions that you had in your martial arts schools as a kid? You had a master that didn't talk.
Well, being that I learned martial arts with a book, it was different. No, I'll tell you how traditional my first school was, which was not Taekwondo. It was Heidi Ochai's karate, right? Japanese, Washin-Ryu karate. And as a kid, as one of the only, I was probably 7, 8 years old when I started. I was so terrified. I would always get there early, so I would have somebody help me tie my belt the proper way in the dressing room before we went out for class. And one day I got in there and I was walking in as the last adult was walking out, and I stayed in there for the entire class. I didn't come out. And then when class was over, I tried to just sneak out as people were leaving, and the instructor saw me and he says, "I didn't see you in class. Where were you?" And I told him I didn't know how to tie my belt. I didn't want to come out. Now he said, "Why didn't you come out and ask?" But it was so traditional and so regimented and strict, I was terrified to ask, right? And then, of course, we had the traditional, bowing and off the mats, no talking. I remember when we would do a test now in Kempo karate with Tony Martinez out in Salt Lake City, Utah, Sandy, Utah, to be exact. We would have to stay in a horse stance while they would grade the tests. And if you broke the horse stance, you could fail. I remember doing that, and that was painful. Now, if he's watching, he might be like, "What are you talking about?" But I was the one in the horse stance. You were the one in the office laughing with your instructors grading tests. But anyway, here's the thing, though. Here's the question. I'm just going to call it out as a whole in this industry, and there's still a handful of people. But here's a question for everybody, and I would love someone to answer or give your thoughts. But whatever you think tradition is, and if you think we're moving away from traditional martial arts, or if you think we're not moving away, when is it that you think tradition started?
Right.
When do you think tradition started in the martial arts? And guys, this is a participation fun webinar thing, whatever this is. What is this? A Zoom, a live, a Be Live?
It's a little bit lighter than whatever you did yesterday with all that matrix marketing with tape on your mouth and your long trench coat and your glasses.
By the way, we're going to announce a winner. We had people do a survey, and the team has a winner, and we will announce that.
And if they're not present, they don't win.
If you don't comment, you're not winning. I'm kidding. But we'll announce the winner, and the winner gets an all-expense pit trip to the Game Changers event in Orlando, Florida, October 20th and 21st, or 21st and 2nd, whatever that Friday is.
From now, man. It's crazy.
Exactly a month. You're exactly right. So they get their flight covered, their hotel room, and their admission to Game Changers. So we will make that announcement. Isn't tradition just a SOP that has been around for many years? Yes, it can be. I mean, that's why I'm saying, how do people define tradition? But here's the thing. I know there's some you guys know this. There are some schools that consider themselves extremely traditional schools. We're very traditional, right? But traditional from when? Because do you think when martial arts originated, they had blue belts and purple belts and green belts? No. So like, okay, so when did that come into play, right? When did charging for martial arts start? When did that start? When did different colored uniforms come into play? And some of you may just say, we have a white uniform or we have a black uniform. That's it, right? But at some point, traditions change. So when I ask the question, are we losing tradition in the martial arts? The answer, I believe, is as a whole, yes, we are. But I don't think that's a negative thing. I think that's an evolution thing. And here's the other thing I'm going to say, and this might, disrupt some people or bother some people. But do you remember back in the 80s for sure, when there was the stuff about you have to register your hands if you're a black belt? Do you remember this? Right?
We put it on a black belt test. True or false? You have to register your hands with the police department as a lethal weapon.
Regardless of that, there was a stigma to anybody that had a black belt in karate and taekwondo and martial arts. There was a stigma with that. I hate to say this because some of you will justify it, but the UFC has proven that it's not the martial art. And by the way, you all know there are, and it doesn't mean that that's how you define a black belt, but there are black belts. There are a lot of black belts that couldn't save themselves from any kind of attack, right? Is that good or bad? Because maybe that wasn't their point of joining martial arts. Maybe their point of joining martial arts was to just be in shape, relieve stress, stay healthy. But at the end of the day, traditional martial arts was to be able to defend yourself, right? So that in itself, we could say we may have gotten away from tradition. Now you flip it to the other side. Maybe some practitioners of certain arts today got away from tradition by bringing in other aspects of martial arts that they feel would be beneficial to know for their students, because you have an open mind and because today one martial art isn't good enough at the highest level. Let's say, is one martial art good enough to defend yourself against the average attacker? I think that's how you should market your schools, because absolutely. I mean, any martial art, if you're training in martial arts and you get a black belt, doesn't matter who you are, even if you're a 75-year-old female petite lady, you will have a better chance defending yourself than if you're that same lady and you never did martial arts, right? But it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to defend yourself against a 250-pound, 6'3" man that, that wants to attack you, right? But where does tradition evolve? And what did we learn? What have we learned in the martial arts, everybody? What have we learned on things that we could do away with that might be a little bit of a waste of time, depending on what your goals are for your students? That's a question you need to ask yourself. And I'm going to throw it to you, Tess. But one of the big things that's been looming for years is katas. Should we get rid of katas? Katas are a waste of time. Well, I don't know if they're a waste of time. Waste of time for relaxation, stress relief, technique application, or self-defense and fighting or whatever. But that's something that's been swirling around the industry for a long time. But maybe we have evolved to where there's things that we've done that we no longer do because it doesn't meet the goals of what we want for our students.
Right. There's schools that, it's just an interesting topic of conversation, right? Because I don't think there's a right way or there's a wrong way. But a few things that stick out to me. Number one, when I was a kid, I remember being in the left side back. I'll never forget. I was left side back guarding stance. You probably don't remember the story. And I was probably 12. I was somewhere in the middle to back of the room, left side back guarding stance. And my instructor was behind me and he was correcting somebody. And I turned my head and looked to see what he was doing. And he had the shinai, right? The bamboo shinai. And he cracked me on top of the head. He cracked me in the leg and told me to drop down and do 50 push-ups. And that's when we had the thin layer of carpet over the cement floor. Well, try that tradition today and see where that gets you, right? I mean, I was so scared I didn't even go home and tell my parents. So those things, right? We obviously need to evolve from and away from. That may have been acceptable at the time. Don't think it was, but it was commonplace, and nobody really said anything about it because maybe it just was expected and they didn't know. It's part of what martial arts is, right? That's something that needs to go by the wayside. I mean, you gave me the name of 2 different martial arts schools that you're at. I wouldn't even know how to say them if I saw them, right? And they put those, and I'm not saying your schools did this, but the other thing that I've seen is we honor the tradition so much that that's what we name our martial arts school. And, you know, and it just doesn't make good sense to me, right? It's like if I put up Taekwondo on my front of my school, right? I mean, Taekwondo's pretty mainstream, but even martial arts as a term, I'll never forget. There was a school called Original Martial Arts, and I was with my mom, and we drove by, and she's like, "What's Original Marital Systems?" Right? That was the name. It was Original Martial Systems was the name of the school. And so, from a marketing standpoint, I think, you know, is what we're holding on to sometimes with tradition getting in the way of us impacting and influencing? Because I think we could all agree that's really what our goal is to impact and influence as many of our community as possible. But if they don't know what, you know, Aikido or Ashido da bada boo is, and that's what's up on the banner, they're never going to even be coming into your martial arts school. So I think those are some of the things that we've looked at. Or, you know, we've looked at kata for kids, and we've gone back and we've looked and we're like, you know, what was that really created for? It was created for, you know, essentially a young adult, right? A teen in a highly disciplined environment in the military, right? That's what it was created for. It was never created for kids with ADD and ADHD, but we were still trying to fit this, you know, round peg in a square hole. And it just wasn't it. Not that it can't work, and not that you can't be successful. I want to be clear about that, because there's a lot of schools that do that. But we've just found there's better ways, and we're evolving, because our goal and our mission is to look at what do those katas do? What do they teach? What's the purpose? Is there a better way for us to do that? And the answer is yes. There's always a better. If we're not evolving, right, we're dying. And that's the big thing for me, anyways. When I look at tradition, what are some of the traditions that potentially could stifle your business? And what are some of the things that we could get people in to understand, get them in first, and then educate them when they're there, right? We can have the best of both worlds, but sometimes we put this tradition out so far in front of us, it stifles our growth, because nobody can get to us because they don't understand what it is or what we do or what we offer.
And another thing we do as people is we defend our beliefs so much that we don't stop to really think about why we believe what we believe, you know, based on evolving and what we learn. You know, at the end of the day, you know, there's things that we know today that we didn't know 30 years ago, as far as, you know, working with kids with ADD or fighting in a cage and seeing really what works and what doesn't work and what we need to use. At the end of the day,
or stretching, for that matter. I mean, you know, a lot of times we did class and we warmed up the beginning of class. I'll have you go through your routine. The beginning of class, you know, we would do our excuse me, our warm-ups, and we would actually stretch. Oh my goodness. We'd actually stretch while we were still relatively cold, right? And we know now that's just not the right way to do it. Oh man.
You okay, Tass?
I'll be all right.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
We're live, by the way.
I know.
A little respect for the audience.
I'll mute next time I have to sneeze.
Can you grab a tissue, please?
Can you catch COVID through the screen?
I'm backing up. Mr. Maddox said, "Who let the pitmaster in here?" I'm assuming he's referring to the pitmaster shirt that I'm wearing. Anyway,
you know, the pitmaster, he's not about kata. That's for sure.
So look, everybody, I did a webinar yesterday, an unfiltered Q&A and just straight talk, but it really is about, you know, opening your mind and not operating with blinders on. I think that's going to help you in your business. I think it's going to help you in your martial arts instruction. But at the end of the day, you got to understand or know what is the goal for your students, right? And the thing that I realized a long time ago is through tradition, I felt I was teaching more memorization than application to my students, right? I would test them. I would test them on do you know the pattern of whether it was a form, a combination, one steps, whatever it is. And I was looking to see if they really knew if they should turn left or right, use the right hand or left hand, more than would this save their life if they were in a situation. And for me, my goal for my students, as I competed, I never ever in my life, I competed a lot, but I never in my life competed in weapons or forms, because that was never what I wanted. I wanted to know how to fight. I mean, that's what I wanted to know how to do. And so when I taught my students, I wanted them to know how to defend themselves, right? But I had tradition. I only knew what I knew from my instructors. But if I didn't keep an open mind and realize, for me, right, I remember realizing that I had been in martial arts already, say, 12 years, let's see, 1983 or something to like 95, when the first UFC came out around 93 or whatever it was. So 10, 12 years. I remember I had been training in martial arts at that time for 10 or 12 years. I watched the first UFC with a bunch of, tough guys, really, except Royce Gracie. And there were a couple of skilled people in there for sure. And I remember feeling unbelievably depressed. And I said to myself, and at the time, I was, 20 years old or whatever I was like, a young, thought I was the toughest guy in the world. And I was depressed because I said to myself, if I would have got in that cage, I would have gotten killed. I said, I've been training for 10 years. And I feel that if I would have gotten in that cage, I would have gotten killed. And that opened my eyes to say, I got to train differently. I got to train in other aspects of martial arts. And I got to open up my mind a little bit here. And that's what I did. And then I think my students were rewarded for that. However, I do believe in the martial arts industry. We need to keep some of the tradition, and you said it earlier, Tass, on the discipline, on the confidence building, on the life skills, on the respect. That is what I believe the martial arts needs to stay true to, because that's the only way we're going to make better communities, better people, check the egos. By the way, let's call it out. You ready, guys? Let's call it out. How many people in the martial arts industry today on Facebook and everything else are showing you how much ego they have or low confidence or self-esteem, that we got to project things out there to show everybody what I have, what I do, how I look, really? Do we really care? I guess some of you will say, well, that inspires me. And I get it, some of that, but we have this talk all the time, and I'm being told by the team and marketing, you should put this out. You should show. I'm not going to show off cars and houses and stuff. That's just not my deal here. But I think that needs to be the core of martial arts, is the discipline, the confidence, the respect, the humility, right? I just think that's important. I think that's a tradition we should never lose.
And I believe that if you've kept those traditions and you're continuing to do those things, you're in a place right now where you not only can you really shine, because if you go back, and I say this man, maybe I'm just getting older and just don't realize things, right? But if you go back 20, 30 years, there's things that I would have never said to my father, right? But I see people saying to their fathers today, as an example. There's this lack of respect that seems to exist today, right? And we can have a whole conversation on, well, is it social media? Is it this? Is it that? I think there's a lot of things that contribute to those things. But I know that if I was to go outside, oh, Perry, careful. that if I was to go outside of the martial, if for whatever reason I was, forced to leave the martial arts industry and I had to go get a real job, I could work my way to the top pretty quickly because mediocrity is so common today. And I think, when we look at the martial arts world, if we can teach these students, right, whether that's kids, adults, whatever, where they're striving for success, they've got a great level of respect, they can look somebody in the eye, they know how to shake a hand, they've got social skills. Those are all things that I think over time have been declining. And if we can continue to teach those things, there's just become this bigger gap of what we can do for a student in our martial arts school because the rest of the world is doing this. And that's not a boastful statement. I just think that that's what we've been doing for years. But I think because, like I said, the gap is beginning to be very, very large. It's real easy for you to shine as us as an industry and as a martial arts school and a place to bring their child or come as an adult to train, that we're just different than most people, right? In a good way, in a respectful way. When I go somewhere and say, thank you, ma'am, or yes, sir, or no, sir, and somebody hasn't heard that, or I open the door for, a gal and it happens to be an older lady and she's like, oh, son, they just don't make them like you anymore. I mean, guys, those are things that, just seem to me personally, just seem like common sense. But as a saying go, common sense isn't so common today. And I think that's what needs to be taught. And yes, we get to do this wonderful thing called martial arts and use that as a vehicle to be able to teach all of these great things. And so I think we need to embrace the time that we're in, knowing that we're in an unbelievable time to be able to impact and influence people's lives and make a big difference in that small, community that we have. And hopefully there's that ripple effect that continues to carry on, that's the big thing.
So I'm just curious, what is the difference between a girl and a gal?
A couple letters.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
I gotcha. All right. Yeah. It's like, when I held the door for this gal, Very nice. You're such a sweet young man.
Well, I think a girl sounded like it was a 12-year-old girl, so a gal sounds a little bit older in my opinion. But yeah, that's me being old. Yeah.
Okay. And a lady,
right,
is even older than that. Anyway, my thing is here's the deal. I think as an industry as a whole, we are shifting away from tradition. I think some people are trying to fight that or look at that as a negative thing. And by the way, there is negative things. There is, depending on how you're shifting away from tradition and what you're doing, could be negative, right? I mean, it absolutely could be negative. But as a whole, if you're evolving as a martial artist, depending again on what your goals are for your students, I think it's okay. And I also think you all need to not be one size fits all. So let me just make sure you understand what I'm saying here. One size fits all is, why would you have the same kind of training, core curriculum, okay, but the same type of training for every student that joins your school? Why would you do that when students have different wants and goals on why they're joining your school? You got to be open enough to understand that as well. Again, I said it yesterday. If a student joins your school because they want to be a world-class competitor, but then somebody else joins your school because they had a stint put in their heart and they need to do something to stay in shape and they always loved martial arts, why do those two people get the same training? They shouldn't. And a lot of you on here will say, well, we don't. And I know that, but I'm talking about some of the schools that do, that will defend on, well, it's traditional. Everybody learns the same thing, the same curriculum, the same techniques, but they shouldn't. They shouldn't. As you said, when martial arts originated, I think everybody that practiced martial art were all there for the same reason, right? To defend their temples or their kingdoms or their land, or they're today it's not that way.
Right.
So you got to know how to bend a little bit here.
There's
right?
a lot of other, there's a lot of other things. And I know, you said that, learn how to fight and defend yourself was important. And I've been down the road of martial arts business education for a long time. And, I remember hearing in my early 20s, and it might have been it might have been John Graydon actually that I heard this from, and I thought this was great. Like black belt, is really more of a metaphor for personal excellence, right? And so I think that there's some importance to that, because you all have students on the floor where you look at a student and you may look and say, okay, well, if you're teaching all the same stuff, there's got to be a level of proficiency. I get all those things, right? Totally understand that. But if you have someone that's there for confidence, you have someone that's there to learn how to defend themselves, those are two completely different things. You need to understand where a student was when they came to you. And this is why I think we're also big fans of, having 250, 300 students. Not that you can't have 600, but being able to have a personal relationship and know all of the people in your martial arts school and all of your students and what their needs are. Where can we push their boundaries? What are they capable of? Because I have those relationships with each of the students and I know them as more than just a number in my school, as an example. So I can push them on different things. I've had kids come that had unbelievable natural talent, really didn't work that hard, and went from white belt to black belt. And if you looked at the increase in their athleticism and the difference, there's not much of an increase because they were talented when they came in, right? But then I have other kids that had huge barriers, right? One kid was he was teens, but he had like the mindset of a second grader. And I'll never, this is when we did traditional forms, and I'll never forget when he completed a very easy, it was Dosan form or something. When he got through the entire form, it was the first time he ever completed a form from front to cover. There was not a dry eye in the place. Every parent, every student was crying because it was a huge accomplishment for this child, right? And so everybody's there for a different reason. And I just always like to bring it back and remember that, for us, black belt is a metaphor for personal excellence. And what is that for you? And what is that for your student? And by the way, does there need to be this bar, this standard criteria? Of course there does. But this is also why there were different divisions created for different people, right? I mean, everybody wants to have the ass kicker for the black belt. So we argue about black belts all the time. Well, should a kid be a black belt at 10, 8, 12, junior black belts, all of the things? But we're comparing them to the 18, 19, 20-some-year-old black belts. But then look at the 50 or 60-year-old black belt that struggles to kick above their waist, as an example, right? There's this big bell curve. And so we have to remember why people are there and be able to offer them, like you said earlier, what it is that they're looking for. I think in the back of our mind, our goal, our mission, regardless of tradition, is to make sure that we're trying to help people become the best versions of themselves that they can be, whatever that is for them. That's it.
Right. Offer different classes for training to make them the, black belt ass kickers, right?
Right.
I mean, look, we could go back and forth and talk about it, but I think, again, we just need to open our eyes up as an industry. I think you need to support each other in this industry. As soon as somebody posts themselves doing something, the critiques come out, right? Everybody's a master, and everyone starts critiquing somebody's, techniques, forms, whatever they're demonstrating, or whatever they post on Facebook or whatever. But that's the exact opposite of what we want to do as an industry. And so, look, I would say this for any of you watching this right now, I know it's an investment. And is this a sales pitch? I guess. I mean, we don't make any money, but why don't you come hang out in October and come to our Game Changers event? We're going to have 300 and some school owners. I don't know the exact number, but 300 plus. I think we had 500 at MayaCon in July. These are a little smaller, this October event, right? March and October. MayaCon in July is just bigger. And it's a different hotel, so the room is there. But my point is you're going to meet some great people, martial artists, successful martial arts, and phenomenal martial artists from all over the country. And bite the bullet and come check it out. And I'd love to meet you in person and just see what you think of a 2-day event in Orlando, Florida. There's a link here, but let's talk about the winner. And then I know when we announce the winner, some people may say, oh, I didn't win. But I will tell you this. I appreciate everybody that attended the webinar yesterday. I thought it was great questions, really great questions. But don't get in your own way, right? And don't defend your beliefs so strongly. open your mind up and hear different perspectives. But the person I was told that was chosen or picked, however the team picked, and by the way, I don't think it's going to be the cheapest, airfare. So it was like a random pick. But it is, and if he's not on here, we'll call him. And I apologize in advance of not being able to pronounce this. But the one who's getting their airfare covered and their hotel night covered and the Game Changers ticket covered is Matthew Embau in Middleton, Wisconsin.
Oh,
near you, I guess. Is that near you?
Yeah, about 90 minutes south. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Middleton, Wisconsin. Matthew Embau is the one that was picked. So congratulations. And I look forward to meeting you and, hope you can take advantage of that.
Oh, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right about here in Wisconsin.
Very good. I was like, could we have picked somebody from Florida? Right?
Yeah, an Uber drive away.
Right, exactly. We're going to give you a taxi. Yeah. But anyway, guys, we appreciate you tuning in. And I hope that if nothing else, this helps you just spur some thought, right? On what it is. Stop and think. Instead of just being on this treadmill with blinders, stop and remind yourself what you're in it for, what you're trying to do for your community, what you're trying to do for your students, and then follow, be smart and evolve on what you can do to be better at accomplishing those goals. Okay. So anything else, Tass?
Yeah, just to echo that, I remember watching the business videos and, back when they were VHS tapes, right? And then they turned into DVDs and listening to all the audio cassette tapes and then CDs, right? And then everything's evolved. And I remember hearing like, hey, if you have any questions, let us know. And we talk about how martial arts builds confidence, but I was so afraid to call. And I don't know what I was afraid of, because I know we'll say sometimes like, well, you're just afraid of being sold, right? Like, if we can help you, yeah, of course we know we can help you. But I don't even know if it was that. It was like, man, they're at this different level, and I just don't want to feel stupid, and I don't want to ask the wrong questions. And so for a lot of years, I didn't do that. And I'll never forget going to the Maya event where Silverman was on stage with Mike Chat doing a 540. And I was in the very back. I'm like, man, that's Silverman. Like, I'd seen Mr. Silverman and all the things. I'm like, that's Mr. Silverman. And then I saw him in the hall in passing. And, it's just, I'll be honest, like I was starstruck at the time, right? Because you have this community in these high level people. And then I fast forward years later and I'm like, Silv's a great friend, got his cell number, hang out together. Like, it's just crazy what can happen in your life when you make a decision, right? And I think that you'll find sometimes the people that you may look up to in the industry and you may think are furthest away from you probably are going to be the closest to you and the most open to wanting to help you in a true and legitimate way, right? I mean,
I'm guarded. I'm protected.
Metzger's got 3 secretaries and 4 phone lines. You'll never get through to him.
Right. You could wave. I hope you guys have a sense of humor. I was going to say, when you brought up that student who did the form from beginning to end and there wasn't a dry eye in the house, I was going to say, and that's the other problem with America. We're all too sensitive.
We're all too sensitive. Right. Right. Now you got to, I got to call it out, because we were at an event one time and we happened to be, it was a super show, as a matter of fact. And we were walking down the hall and Metzger and I were talking, we had our coffee and whatever. And some guy walked by, I don't even remember who it was. And I'm like, dude, they just said like, oh, they're too good for us or something like that. I'm like, we didn't even, like, I heard it. And then we turned around to go like introduce ourselves to him. I'm like, man, you guys may know us by face because we're doing the show, but we don't know all of you by face. So we know when you come to the Game Changers event, make sure you introduce yourself to us, because we are very friendly and we'd be happy to chat with you. But just know we can't see you on the other side of the screen. So I just want to call that out.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? I mean, I'm just walking down the hall and then I'm passing hundreds of people as I'm just walking to the seminar room or whatever. And then people think I'm too good because I didn't stop and say hi. I don't, do you guys, when you walk down the street or just when you go into a restaurant, just stop and start saying hello to every table? It's just I mean, we want you to say hi. And by the way, it's not like we're some celebrities or anything, but the comment was made that I or we didn't say hello.
Yeah.
You know, it's just.
And then the following year Super Show, you know, people were mad because he didn't give a seminar because he was in the hallway saying hi to everybody because it hurt his feelings that bad.
Right, exactly. Right, that's exactly correct.
Yeah.
But no, look, come out to Game Changers. By the way, that's the numbers we're at now. I don't know where the numbers will go, but I know we cap at this hotel compared to Myocon. We were at the Disney Coronado. Is that where we were? Disney Coronado. We're at the Hyatt Regency in Orlando. So it's a little smaller, you know, venue, but fun venue. And we're going to have an awesome Friday night, like cocktail hors d'oeuvres, networking. I believe karaoke was voted too, just with some music and stuff. So, you know, but that's for networking. We want school owners to just get to know each other and network with each other because we're here to support each other, you know, on being as successful as possible. So anywho,
I'm excited. You know, because I missed Myocon, so this will be great to be back in the mix. And
by the way, Miss Ramos says the people who know you know you're snobby, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. And who is Denise Ramos?
I have no idea. First time I've ever seen her.
Hey, Denise Ramos, we appreciate you tuning into the show as a fan. and Mr. Mbao, if I'm saying that correct, congratulations. You know, someone will definitely be in touch and work out some arrangements with you. So
yeah, and if you're in the Appleton area, ever stop by and say hi for sure. That's great. We'll look forward to seeing him at the conference.
There you go. Yeah, you're 90 minutes away from Mr. Shane. So
beautiful.
Thank you guys. Enjoy the beautiful weather weekend. Hopefully you guys, wherever you are going to have some beautiful weather. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks for sure on the next show. Or is 2 weeks the seminar? No, 3 weeks. 4 weeks. 4 weeks.
Yeah.
All right. And by the way, if you don't know who Denise Ramos is, it's some little Mexican gal who's definitely not a martial artist. There she is.
Yeah, with no sense of humor at all.
And if you're going to be part of our crew, you got to have a sense of humor. If you don't have a sense of humor, there's plenty of other groups to choose.
Right on. Appreciate everybody. Thanks, bud.
Talk to you soon.